In 1952, physicist Edward Teller and his team fired a test shot of a hydrogen bomb in the Pacific. However, the shot misfired. During the post-mortem analysis, they realized that the test had failed and that the next planned shot could not possibly succeed given the design flaws. With millions being spent on the testing efforts, this had to be stopped. The problem? Teller's superiors had already ordered the next test shot. Teller knew proceeding would waste resources, so he had to personally convince them to cancel it. Through a careful argument pointing out every reason why the next shot would fail, Teller persuaded his superiors to cancel the next shot, saving money and effort. This experience led to the introduction of not just a post-mortem committee, but also a pre-mortem committee. Before each shot, the planning group would sit down to foresee potential failures and objections. After the shot, look at outcomes and learn from mistakes. Let's first have a look at the explanation of the pre-mortem and the post-mortem framework in more detail to get a better understanding of them, and then we will have a look at how to apply both concepts to our own lives. The pre-mortem, meaning before death, is a proactive procedure where we anticipate potential failures before they happen. By asking ourselves what could go wrong, we can better prepare and possibly prevent these issues. How could a pre-mortem look? The procedure is simple. When the organization has almost come to an important decision, but has not formally committed itself, the psychologist Gary Klein proposes gathering for a brief session a group of individuals who are knowledgeable about the decision. The premise of the session is a short speech. Imagine that we are a year into the future. We implemented the plan as it now exists. The outcome was a disaster. Please take 5 to 10 minutes to write a brief history of that disaster. Why is to conduct a pre-mortem useful? What advantages does a pre-mortem have? The pre-mortem has 2 main advantages. It overcomes the groupthink that affects many teams once a decision appears to have been made, and it unleashes the imagination of knowledgeable individuals in a much-needed direction. The main virtue of the pre-mortem is that it legitimizes doubts. Furthermore, it encourages even supporters of the decision to search for possible threats that they had not considered earlier. A post-mortem, meaning after death, is like a detective investigation. After an event, you gather clues to understand what went wrong and why, helping you avoid the same mistakes in the future. This concept can be applied to various areas. For example, we can conduct a post-mortem to analyze the reasons behind a business failure. In other words, by Warren Buffett in a business context. Managers tend to be reluctant to look at the results of the capital projects or the acquisitions that they propose with great detail only a year or 2 earlier to a board. And they don't want to actually stick the figures up there as to how the reality worked out relative to the projections. That's human nature. But I think you are a better doctor if you drop by the pathology department occasionally. And I think you are a better manager or investor if you look at each decision that you have made of importance and see which ones worked out and which ones didn't. Possible questions we could ask ourselves. What was my original reason for doing something? What did I know and what were my assumptions? What were my alternatives at the time? How did reality work out relative to my original guess? What worked and what didn't? What worked well? What should I do differently? What did I fail to do? What did I miss? What must I learn? What must I stop doing? Summarizing now both concepts. Thinking things through with a pre-mortem and looking at the worst case. Why at the worst case? Because we want to survive in the first place, right? Because when we don't survive, nothing else matters. And with a post-mortem, we want to learn from our mistakes. Learning from our mistakes because we don't want to do them again in the future. We can apply both frameworks to many situations in our lives, both personally and professionally. Our scenario is a decision to make a career change. Before submitting my resignation, I conduct a pre-mortem analysis to envision potential pitfalls of this career change decision. Normally, we focus on what are the positive aspects of that change. What happens when everything goes right? In the pre-mortem, we basically invert the question to what could go wrong that would make this career change a mistake. Some potential issues. Struggling to acquire the necessary skills for the new role. Underestimating the financial impact of a potential pay cut. Missing the intellectual stimulation challenges of my current job. Now, on these potential issues, we can apply the mental model of second-order thinking to anticipate long-term consequences if those issues materialize. Struggling to acquire the necessary skills for the new role. This can lead to diminished job satisfaction and lack of growth opportunities. This can lead to regret and demotivation due to a mismatch with a new career. Underestimating the financial impact of a potential pay cut. This can lead to strained finances impacting my lifestyle and future goals. Missing the intellectual simulation challenges of my current job. This can lead to diminished job satisfaction. Now, that looks quite pessimistic, but it's good to know a potential downside, at least to be aware of it. We can't know for sure. It can come totally different than we planned. With these risks in mind, I take preventive measures like upgrading my skills, saving more money and seeking out people who work in the aspired new career to better understand the new career's realities. So far so good. I decide to change careers. Now let's move to the post-mortem analysis. Assuming that the career change didn't go as planned, in this post-mortem analysis, I will conduct the 5 whys mental model to better understand what went wrong. Why did I struggle to adapt to the new career? Because the day-to-day responsibilities were quite different from my expectations. Why were my expectations misaligned with reality? Because I didn't roughly research the role's nuances. It's different to just ask people how they find the career than to experience the daily work by oneself. As Morgan Housel says, harder than it looks and not as fun as it seems. Why didn't I research more so roughly? Because I was overconfident in my assumptions about the career. Why was I overconfident? Because I let my dissatisfaction with my previous job cloud my judgment and had a rosy picture of the new career. Why did I let dissatisfaction cloud my judgment? Because I failed to separate my emotions from objective decision making. Which is of course not always easy to do. Since I am aware that I can't always fully control my emotions, a solution could be, for the next time, to take more time to make a big decision, letting the emotion cool down first. I hope by now you got a feeling for the pre-mortem and the post-mortem framework. They both for sure cost like a lot of time, so to speak, in the short term, and I'm aware that most of us don't have time. But when we look at the long-term value they provide, they are totally worth the cost. Because imagine the pre-mortem can save us a lot of time in the long run or the long term when we don't make a decision or like a decision which could likely turn out wrong in the first place. Or we don't do a project because with a pre-mortem framework or with a pre-mortem analysis, we came to the conclusion that this isn't worth the risk. So when we don't do it, we save time in the long run, right? And the post-mortem can save us time by not making the same mistakes again. The pre-mortem isn't guaranteed to protect us from failure, and the post-mortem isn't guaranteed to find always mistakes from which we can learn from, because our lives are too complex, or we are living in a complex system, and the causes and all the connections are not always visible. Those are just the limitations which to be aware of. By thinking ahead with the pre-mortem framework on potential dangers and looking at the past with the post-mortem framework, we can make overall better decisions. When you're interested in more mental frameworks or mental models, consider checking out this playlist. When you like this video or you got some value out of it, and in general you're interested in more videos of this kind, consider subscribing to this channel. As always, I wish you a fantastic day and thank you so much for watching this video today.